I was passed out in the elevator between the third and fourth floors of our Phoenix office building at 6:47 a.m. on Tuesday morning when the cleaning lady found me. But it wasn't the medical emergency that changed everything. It was what she whispered while waiting for the paramedics. What happened next shattered everything I thought I knew about handling pressure. My name is Blake, and 12 hours before that incident in the elevator, I thought I had stress management figured out. I was the director of operations at a Phoenix tech startup called NovaTech, the person everyone turned to when deadlines felt impossible, the one who stayed calm when servers crashed and clients threatened to walk away. But here's what nobody knew. I was consuming energy drinks like they were water and sleeping only 3 hours a night, and had also been telling myself the same lie every morning for 2 years, that I can handle anything. That Tuesday morning, my body put me to the test. Just the night before, our biggest client, a healthcare network worth $2.3 million annually, had given us an ultimatum to fix their data migration system latest by 8 a.m. Tuesday, or they would walk away, potentially suing us for breach of contract. I had been in the office for 37 straight hours. My team had gone home. My wife, Alexis, had stopped texting. I was alone with 16 monitors displaying failures in real time. At 6:30 a.m., I decided to grab coffee from the break room on the fourth floor. I hit the elevator button and stepped inside. That was the last thing I remember before waking up on the cold marble floor with a woman's voice saying, "I the O's, me O." It was Rosa, the cleaning lady I had passed in the hallways for 2 years without ever learning her name. She was kneeling beside me, her cleaning cart blocking the elevator doors, speaking rapid Spanish into her phone. "I'm fine," I mumbled as I tried to sit up, but the world tilted sideways. "No, you're not fine," she said, switching to English with a thick accent. "You're trying to control the whole world, mijo. That's why you're on the floor." The paramedics arrived 6 minutes later, and my blood pressure was through the roof. I was dehydrated and exhausted. They wanted to take me to the hospital, but I refused. I had to fix the system, save the company, and prove I could handle anything. "See?" Rosa whispered to me as they packed up their equipment. "You're still trying to control everything, even your own collapse." That's when something shifted. Not a lightning bolt of wisdom, not a thunderous revelation, but more like a hairline crack in a dam that had been holding back the truth for years. What if I wasn't in control of everything? What if that very need for control was the thing that was destroying me? The healthcare client called at 8:23 a.m. I answered from the elevator floor, still sitting there with Rosa. "We're going to need another 48 hours, I said. No excuses, no elaborate explanations, just the truth. "Understood," the client replied. "Thanks for the honest timeline." They didn't sue. They didn't even sound angry. They just sounded relieved. Now here's what Rosa taught me in that elevator, and what you need to understand if you've ever felt like the weight of the world is on your shoulders. You are not in control of everything, and that's okay. Not just okay, but necessary. You can influence outcomes, make smart decisions, work hard, and prepare thoroughly. But you cannot control every variable, every person's reaction, or every possible outcome. The moment you stop trying to control everything, that's when you start getting better results with half the stress. Have you ever collapsed under the pressure you put on yourself? Comment below, because I guarantee you are not alone in this struggle. Most high achievers are secretly control addicts. We think our worth depends on managing every detail, preventing every failure, and anticipating every problem. But here's what nobody tells you. The need to control everything is actually a form of fear. Fear that you're not enough. Fear that you'll be unable to handle whatever comes next. Fear that if you let go, everything will fall apart. Rosa's wisdom was just the beginning of what I'd learn about myself over the next 6 months. Because that elevator incident wasn't the end of my breakdown. Rather, it was the start of discovering 9 other brutal truths that would either save my career and marriage or destroy them completely. The second truth came barely 3 days later when I made the biggest mistake of my professional life. 3 days after the elevator incident, I was back at my desk, trying to apply Rosa's advice about control. The healthcare client system was running smoothly, and I was finally sleeping 6 hours a night instead of 3. Things were finally looking up. That's when I accidentally deleted our entire backup database. It was neither intentional, nor was it due to recklessness. As usual, I was trying to be perfect, double-checking a routine maintenance procedure that I had done hundreds of times before. Just one misplaced command, and 847 gigabytes of client data disappeared. The panic was immediate and primal. My hands started shaking, and my vision narrowed. This wasn't just embarrassing. It was potentially career-ending, company-destroying, and lawsuit-worthy. I sat there for 17 minutes, staring at the error message while my mind raced through every possible fix, every potential excuse, and every way to blame the system instead of my own human error. Then I remembered what Rosa had said. You're trying to control everything. So I did something I had never done in my professional life. I walked straight to my boss Derek's office and told him exactly what happened. I made a critical error, I said. I deleted the Peterson medical backup database. Though it's recoverable from our secondary systems, it will take about 12 hours of downtime. Derek stared at me as if I had just confessed to murder. You're actually telling me this instead of trying to fix it quietly, he roared. I'm telling you this so we can manage the client's expectations and prevent bigger problems. He was quiet for 30 seconds before asking, How long have you been hiding mistakes like this, Blake? The question hit me like a physical blow. The honest answer was, always. For 2 years, I had been covering up small errors, working overtime to fix problems before anyone noticed, and living in constant terror that someone would discover I wasn't perfect. That afternoon, while the system restore was running, I had a session with my therapist, Dr. Kim. I had been seeing her for anxiety, but I had never mentioned my perfectionism. After describing the database incident, she asked, Blake, what do you think would happen if people knew you made mistakes? They'd lose confidence in me. They'd realize I'm not as competent as they think. I answered. And then what? She continued. I'd get fired, or demoted, or, I responded, or they'd realize you're human, she concluded. The words hung in the air like a challenge. That day, Dr. Kim made me write down every mistake I could remember making in the past year, not to punish myself, but to examine the actual consequences. The website that went down for 2 hours because of my coding error. The client had thanked us for the quick fix. The budget miscalculation that cost us $3,000. My boss said it was a learning experience. The presentation where I forgot half of my talking points. The client said it felt more authentic than our usual pitches. One pattern after another revealed the same reality. My mistakes didn't define me. Other people's opinions of my worth weren't dependent on my perfection. If you're tired of pretending to be perfect, subscribe now, because what comes next will challenge everything you believe about failure. The real test, however, came that evening at home. Alexis was making dinner, and I could see the question in her eyes. She knew something had happened at work. My stress levels had been visible for months. "I made a huge mistake today," I told her. "I deleted an entire database." I expected disappointment, maybe anger. Recently, we had been discussing buying a house and having kids, and my job security mattered for our future. Instead, she hugged me. "Thank God," she said. "I've been waiting 2 years for you to admit you're not perfect. It's exhausting being married to someone who thinks they can't make mistakes." That's when the second truth became clear. You will make mistakes, but they don't define you. But here's what most people miss. It's not just about accepting mistakes. It's about understanding that your worth as a human being isn't tied to your performance. You are not your job title. You are not your achievements. You are not your productivity metrics, or your efficiency ratings, or your ability to manage 17 projects without dropping a ball. You are a human being who happens to do work, and human beings make mistakes. It's not a bug in the system, it's a feature. This revelation led to the third truth, which was revealed through Alexis's reaction, that other people's opinions are not your responsibility. I had been managing my wife's emotions regarding my work performance, my boss's confidence in my abilities, and my team's perception of my leadership, forgetting that you have absolutely no control over what other people think of you, and that you can only control your actions and your character. As I learned these first three truths, I thought I was finally getting my life under control. What I didn't realize was that my biggest tests were still ahead, and that a simple phone call from my brother Trevor would shatter everything I thought I knew about helping others, in addition to revealing three more brutal truths about human nature that could either save my family relationships or destroy them forever. The fourth truth nearly broke me. Trevor's call came at 11:43 p.m. on a Thursday. I was in bed, actually sleeping well for once, when my phone lit up with that particular ringtone that signifies a family emergency. "Blake," he had blurted, "you need to get to Tucson immediately. Dad's in the ICU at Banner Medical. They don't know if he's going to make it." The drive from Phoenix to Tucson takes 90 minutes, but I made it in 72 minutes. Alexis rode shotgun, neither of us talking, both of us thinking the same thing. What if we're too late? Dad was alive but unconscious when we arrived. Machines were beeping and tubes were everywhere. The man who had built houses with his bare hands for 40 years looked as fragile as paper. My mom was falling apart, and my sister Katie was crying in the hallway. Trevor was pacing like a caged animal, making phone calls to relatives and trying to coordinate everything. And me? I immediately went into fix-it mode. "Mom," I started, "have you talked to his cardiologist about the treatment plan?" "Trevor, we need to get his affairs organized." "Katie, you should call his work and make sure his health insurance is current." I was back to controlling everything, managing everyone's grief, and trying to orchestrate a family crisis like it was a work project. That's when the anxiety attack hit me. Right there in the cardiac ICU waiting room, surrounded by my family, I couldn't breathe or think. I experienced the familiar tunnel vision, chest pain, and the suffocating feeling that the walls were closing in. But this time, I couldn't hide it or excuse myself to have a breakdown in private. I was hyperventilating in front of everyone. Katie grabbed my arm. "Blake, what's wrong? Are you having a heart attack too?" she cried. The nurse practitioner, Luis, came over. He had been watching me try to manage everyone's emotions for the past hour. "Come with me," he said, leading me to a quiet room down the hall. "You're having a panic attack. But that's not the real problem. The real problem, Luis continued, is that you're trying to control your family's grieving process. You can't fix this situation, and you can't fix their pain. He handed me a paper bag to breathe into. Your dad might not wake up. That's the reality. And you can't change it by organizing everyone's emotions, he concluded. His words hit me like physical blows because he was absolutely right. I had been treating my family's crisis like a work problem that needed solving. But grief isn't a project to manage, and fear isn't a task to delegate. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, you have power over your mind, and not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Look, what you're feeling right now is just a visitor, Luis said. It's intense, but it's not staying forever. You don't have to fight it. You just have to let it pass through. That's when the fourth truth became clear. Your emotions are temporary visitors, and not permanent residents. The panic, the grief, and the overwhelming fear of losing my dad were valid, but they weren't permanent. They would pass through me if I let them, instead of trying to control them or make them go away. I sat awkwardly with the anxiety instead of fighting it, finally allowing the grief to wash over me instead of trying to organize my way out of it, as usual. Something strange happened. The feelings became more manageable, not less. And when I returned to the waiting room, I tried a different approach. Instead of managing everyone's emotions, I simply sat with them. Rather than fixing their pain, I acknowledged it. This is scary, I said to my mom. We don't know what's going to happen. I'm terrified, she replied, and then she cried. Really cried? For the first time since we had arrived? Trevor stopped pacing, and Katie put down her phone. We all just sat there, being afraid together. That's when I realized the fifth truth, that I cannot save everyone, because that's not my job. All this while I had been trying to rescue my family from their own emotions, but they didn't need rescuing. They needed someone to witness their pain, not someone to fix it. Dad woke up 6 hours later, groggy, confused, but alive. The first thing he said to me was, "Stop looking so worried, son. Worry never fixed a damn thing." The irony wasn't lost on me. Over the next 3 days, as Dad recovered, I watched him handle discomfort differently than I had ever seen before. The pain from the surgery, the uncertainty about his prognosis, and the frustration of being dependent on others. He didn't fight it. He didn't try to control it. He just endured it. Discomfort, he told me on the third day, is just growth trying to happen. You can fight it, or you can let it teach you something. This is the sixth truth, that discomfort is growth trying to happen. All my life I had been trying to avoid discomfort in my work, relationships, and emotional life. But discomfort isn't the enemy. It's information. It's your life trying to evolve you into someone stronger. The panic attacks weren't just random anxiety. They were my body communicating that my approach to stress was unsustainable. The family crisis wasn't simply bad luck. It was life teaching me that I couldn't control everything, and that trying to save everyone was actually hurting the people I loved. What discomfort are you running from that might actually be trying to teach you something? Share with us in the comments below. Someone may learn from your experience. As my dad recovered and we drove back to Phoenix, I thought I had learned the hardest lessons. But I was wrong. Nothing prepared me for what awaited me at the office, where a single phone call would not only force me to confront the difference between responsibility and self-punishment, but would also reveal two more brutal truths that would either save my career or end it completely. The seventh truth would challenge everything I believed about accountability. Barely 3 weeks after my dad's heart attack, I was back at NovaTech, feeling like I had gained some perspective. The family crisis had taught me about emotional control and my savior complex. Dad was recovering well, and things were stabilizing. That's when Derek knocked on my office door with a legal document in his hand. "Peterson Medical is suing us," he said. "They're claiming the database error you made 3 weeks ago caused health insurance portability and Accountability Act violations. They want $4.2 million in damages." My blood went cold. This was the mistake I had confessed to, the one I thought we had handled professionally and resolved. My first instinct wasn't to fight the lawsuit, it was to run. I started calculating in my head. I could quit NovaTech before the lawsuit destroyed my reputation, move back to Tucson, help Dad with his recovery, and start over somewhere else where nobody knew about my failures. Alexis found me that night packing a suitcase. "What are you doing?" she asked. "I'm destroying everything we've built here. The lawsuit, the stress on the team, the damage to the company. Maybe it's better if I just disappear," I replied. She sat on the bed, watching me fold shirts as if my life depended on getting the creases right. "Blake," she said quietly, "you're running away. It's not helping. It's running." "I'm taking responsibility," I insisted. "I made the mistake. I should bear the consequences." "Responsibility isn't disappearing when things get hard. Responsibility is staying and facing the consequences," she countered. Her words cut deep because they were true. I wasn't being noble by running away. I was being cowardly. I was confusing responsibility with self-punishment. "What am I actually responsible for?" I asked her. "Your choices, your actions going forward. Not the lawsuit, not Peterson Medical's reaction, not Derek's stress levels, but your choices," she explained. The seventh truth crystallized, that I am responsible for my choices and not my circumstances. I was responsible for making the database error, for how I responded to the lawsuit, and for my decision to either run away or face the consequences. But I wasn't responsible for Peterson Medical's decision to sue, their interpretation of health insurance portability and Accountability Act law, or for controlling their reaction to my mistake. That distinction seemed small, but it changed everything. Because when you're only responsible for your choices, you stop trying to control outcomes and start focusing on making better decisions. I decided to stay and fight, not against the lawsuit, but against the circumstances that led to it. I spent the next week investigating every detail of the database incident, and what I found was revealing. Peterson Medical had been looking for a reason to break our contract for months. They had found a cheaper vendor. The lawsuit wasn't truly about health insurance portability and Accountability Act violations. It was about contract termination. My mistake had given them an excuse, but it wasn't the cause of their decision. When I presented this evidence to Derek and our legal team, the dynamic shifted completely. This wasn't about my failure anymore. It was about contract negotiation. This revelation unveiled the eighth truth, that progress matters more than perfection. I had been so focused on being perfect that I had missed the real issue. Peterson Medical wasn't angry about my mistake. Rather, they were using it as leverage. The solution wasn't to strive for perfection. It was to be more strategic, to focus on incremental progress rather than flawless execution. We negotiated a settlement for $400,000. It was painful, but manageable. Peterson Medical received their contract termination, and we managed to keep our reputation intact. It wasn't perfect, but it was progress. The lawsuit taught me a crucial lesson about growth, that it's not about avoiding failure. Rather, it's about improving your response to failure. 6 months earlier, I would have concealed the database error, frantically tried to fix it in secret, and lived in fear that someone would discover my mistake. This time, however, I confessed immediately, took responsibility for my choices, and focused on controlling what I could. The result? A manageable crisis instead of a career-ending catastrophe. As the Peterson medical settlement was finalized, I believed I had learned everything I needed to know about responsibility and control. I had no idea that the hardest truths still lay ahead. The ones that could either give my life meaning or crush me under the weight of their implications. 6 months after the elevator incident, I was implementing all 8 principles consistently. Work was manageable, my marriage was stronger, and my dad was recovering well. I thought I had it all figured out, till one fateful evening when my dad called with news that changed everything. "The cardiologist wants to see me next week," he said. "The heart damage is worse than they initially thought. We need to talk about timelines." Timelines? The word hung in the air like a death sentence. I drove to Tucson that weekend, but this time I wasn't rushing to fix anything. I was just going to be present. Dad was sitting on his back porch when I arrived, looking out at the Sonoran Desert sunset. He seemed smaller than I remembered, but calmer too. "How long?" I asked, sitting beside him. 6 months, maybe 12 if I'm lucky. The next heart attack will probably be the last one," he had replied. We sat in silence for a while. Not uncomfortable silence, just presence. "I'm not afraid of dying," he said finally. "I'm afraid of not living before I die." That conversation revealed the 9th truth, that I will die someday, and that makes today matter more. Not in a morbid way, but in a clarifying way. When you truly accept that your time is limited, not just intellectually, but in your bones, you stop wasting it on things that don't matter. You stop postponing important conversations. You stop living for someday and start living for today. Dad's diagnosis didn't send me into a panic about mortality. Instead, it made me grateful for the time we had left. "What do you want to do with the time you have?" I asked him. "Spend it with people I love and doing things that matter. The same thing I should have been doing all along." Have you ever realized that what you've been postponing might be the only things that actually matter? The following Monday, I was back at NovaTech when I saw Rosa in the hallway. We had passed each other dozens of times since the elevator incident, but we had never truly talked. This time I stopped. "Rosa, can I ask you something? That day in the elevator, when you said I was trying to control the whole world, how did you know exactly what I needed to hear?" She smiled, but it was a sad smile. "My son Carlos worked like you, always trying to fix everything and control everything. Never slept, never rested, always pushing, and pushing." She paused, leaning on her cleaning cart. "He had a heart attack at 34, just like your father. But Carlos, he didn't survive." "Carlos used to tell himself he was doing it for his family," Rosa continued. "But really, he was afraid. Afraid that if he stopped controlling everything, it would all fall apart." "What would you have told him if you could talk to him one more time?" I asked. "The same thing I tell you now, that you choose your response to everything that happens to you. Everything. That's all you control, but it's enough." This brings us to the 10th truth, which says that I choose my response to everything that happens to me. Not what happens, Not other people's choices, not other people's opinions, not other people's circumstances, not their luck or fate, rather just my response to them. What makes this truth powerful is that your response determines your experience. You can't control the lawsuit, but you can control how you handle it. You can't control your father's heart condition, but you can control how you spend the time you have left with him. You can't control how Rosa lost her son, but you can choose to honor his memory by not repeating the same mistakes. Standing in that hallway with Rosa, I realized that these 10 principles weren't random discoveries. They formed a complete system for navigating life's inevitable chaos. The ancient Stoics, Epictetus, Seneca, and Marcus Aurelius, had figured this out thousands of years ago. They lived through plagues, wars, political upheavals, and personal tragedies, and they distilled human resilience into its essential elements. As Epictetus taught, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. Control what you can control. Accept what you can't. Choose your response to everything. These concepts are simple but brutal to implement and transformative when you do. Today, I teach these principles to my team at NovaTech, not as philosophical theory, but as practical tools for managing crisis, pressure, and uncertainty. When new hires feel overwhelmed, I share Rosa's insights about control. When projects fail, we practice the understanding that mistakes do not define us. When clients get angry, we remind ourselves that other people's opinions are not our responsibility. And by the way, Dad is still alive, 14 months later. He is still building things with his hands, just on smaller projects now. We spend every weekend together constructing a workshop behind his house. Not because he needs my help, but because that time together matters. These principles aren't just ideas. They're survival tools disguised as ancient wisdom. My fellow unapologetic Stoics, here's what I need you to understand. This framework saved my career, my marriage, and my sanity. But it only works if you're brave enough to face the hard truths about yourself. Most self-help content is misleading because it promises easy solutions to difficult problems. These 10 truths promise nothing except that you'll become someone capable of handling whatever life throws at you. Which of these principles are you avoiding? Comment below. Because I guarantee you're not alone in this struggle. Control addicts will struggle with the first principle. Perfectionists will dislike the second principle. People pleasers will resist the third principle. But your resistance will reveal exactly where your growth needs to happen. If you're tired of motivational lies, ready to build a life based on truth instead of illusion, and want practical philosophy for those who refuse to live in denial, this is your community. To further support your journey, be sure to follow our community tab for daily Stoic wisdom that reinforces principles of inner strength and outer composure. Each morning, I share powerful quotes from Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, Seneca, and other remarkable figures. These insights can help you build the unshakable foundation needed for these techniques. Don't forget to hit that notification bell so you never miss this essential training. If you enjoyed this video, you'll really love the next one as well. Just click on the screen right now to watch it. Subscribe not just for more content, but for a different way of thinking about strength, resilience, and what it means to live well. Because Rosa was right. You choose your response to everything. That choice, made consistently, courageously, moment by moment, is what transforms a life from surviving to thriving. The elevator broke down, but I didn't, and neither will you.